What's going on, guys? Caleb Comstock here. I just got done brushing up and setting up this new TideWe 270 ground blind. It's got that see-through view. You can see so much clearance around it. So today we're going to talk about how we can use ground blinds to be effective during early season. One way that you can do that, and it's the way that I have it set up right now, is I have it set up on a food source. I got it tucked up in the woods, and out in front of me I got my food plot that I planted earlier this year. This is a great way to make use of a ground blind if you can't get into a tree. So for my example, I've got this set up for a southeast wind. I have no trees I could really get in over this plot for a southeast wind. So what I do is I brought this TideWe blind in and we brushed it up off the edge of the food plot, and it's very effective for hunting deer going to food. They're transitioning from their bed. This is a food plot. They hit the food plot and then they transition out to the main egg fields. I ran a blind in here last year. It was very effective. I seen a lot of deer sitting out of that blind. So that's one way that you could use ground blinds to be successful during the early season. Another way that you might want to use a ground blind is maybe you have this buck pattern, but the problem is you have 0 trees. I know there's a lot of times where, especially up in North Dakota where I just got back from, there's a lot of spots where it was hard to find trees because we're hunting swamps. But what we found to be useful is we would take blinds in and we'd set it up on the transition from the bed to the food. A lot of times if you can find like a tree row or some thick nasty brush and you can tuck up a blind in there, it can be very effective for getting deer filtering through the blind and being in close range. One huge important thing though when it comes to ground blind hunting is you really want to make sure you get that blind brushed in as well as you can. As you can see behind me, you can barely see this blind, and that's on purpose. It is tucked up between 2 pine trees, and then I have pine tree branches stacked up in front of it. If you can make your blind disappear as best as you can, the deer are barely going to realize it's there. The deer are not like turkeys where you can just stick a blind out in the middle of the field. They are way more weary of that, so it is extremely crucial if you're going to try ground blind hunting that you brush that blind in as best as you can. It might take the deer a day or 2 to get used to it, but once they do, they'll have no clue it's in there. Like I said, I hunted in this exact spot last year and I had deer filtering 5 feet away from the blind and they didn't have a care in the world that was in that blind. Another huge advantage of using ground blinds is you can get people in the woods that normally aren't able to go. Early season is usually warm. It's a great time to get children involved in the outdoors. Like I said, this blind is huge. It conceals a ton of movement. When you got kids out there, there's a lot more movement going on. So using a ground blind is a great way to get youth involved in the sport. It's also a great way to get maybe veterans that are disabled or even the senior people that it's tougher for them to climb up a tree. If you can tuck up a ground blind in a good spot, a good location that they're able to get in there and hunt out of, it can be extremely effective that way. So ground blinds can be a great use, especially if you put them to use correctly, you brush them in. They can be extremely effective this year, early season and all season long, especially rolling into late season over a main food source. Those are some tips to help you this year and how you can put a ground blind to use to be successful this early season.